Yes, we were told by the previous president that the UK was absolutely at the front of the queue or the line when it came to a trade deal. We are obviously not, the difference being that you now have a new president. What's the problem?
Well, I think the focus right now is on the trade that we do have, $220 billion a year in goods and services, not to mention the $1.5 trillion in investment both ways that creates millions of jobs on both sides of the Atlantic. That's the focus, while the president focuses on the U.S. domestic economy. After COVID, of course, emerging, the president and prime minister discussed the Build Back Better World initiative that the G7 have undertaken, how important that is to all of us. We're talking about the first and fifth largest economies in the world, and we're doing a tremendous amount. I don't think we should focus on so-called trade agreements as the be-all and the end-all. We're working toward a number of new opportunities. You saw the Prime Minister discuss, and the President, lamb, for instance, as one small step. I believe they're working on new rules for import of ruminants, that is sheep and lamb, into the United States. That's one small step, but again, $220 billion a year in two-way trade is a very important thing, and we'll look to grow that. But we need stability, certainly at home with our economy, and we need to focus on the climate situation as well.
We'll come to that. US-UK trade deal not important then, is that what you're saying?
No, I think trade is vitally important, and the President and the Prime Minister agreed and discussed that. We'll keep working on trade. We've got a lot to do at home, and I think it's important for everyone that the U.S. Economy is emerging from COVID well. We're all keeping a close eye on this. These are things we have to work on together, and the G7, which Britain, of course, has chaired this year, is an important part of that.
So if it is important, how likely is a trade deal in the near future?
Look, I think we just have to take things one step at a time, keep focusing on the trade that we have emerging from COVID, and more, as we indicated, focusing on the importance of a green economy. The Prime Minister underscored that in his UN speech, and the President certainly underscored the importance of green, of putting more money into climate, and we're looking forward to the COP26 conference that will take place here in Glasgow in just a few weeks' time.
And we will come to that. But in the meantime, Joe Biden is the most Irish president, I think it's fair to say, since JFK. Is his view on the Northern Ireland Protocol part of the reason that is a sticking point for a US-UK trade deal?
The President has made very clear that the importance to him and to so many Americans, and frankly, to so many in the UK, and that includes Northern Ireland, is the Good Friday Accords, which we had a strong role in. We're proud of that role. It brought peace and stability after years and years of tragic violence. Preserving the Good Friday Accords is what the President has said must be kept in mind. I think there's broad agreement on that. And we want to see the parties, in terms of the Northern Ireland Protocol, work towards that through diplomacy, through conversations and discussion. I think there's ways forward. I think everyone agrees that, and it can be done. They just need to focus on that, but keeping the Good Friday Accords in mind, and that's President Biden's point.
If you'll indulge me, Mr. Ambassador, we did have a Secretary of State on the programme. I'm sure you heard earlier on in the week, and he said the problem is that your president just doesn't understand the Northern Ireland Protocol. This is what he had to say. If you could bear with us and have a quick listen.
We think he's wrong because the truth is that unless we have a sustainable solution that enables trade to continue between GB and Northern Ireland, then we are going to have issues, and that itself would become a challenge to the Belfast Agreement. So those who believe, as we do, in the hard-won peace and stability in Northern Ireland have to make the Northern Ireland Protocol work on a sustainable basis.
Now, I apologise that he wasn't particularly diplomatic, but you get his point.
Look, I think, again, everyone would agree that the Good Friday Accords, the Belfast Agreement that brought and have preserved peace in Northern Ireland for decades now, are vitally important. That's the President's point. There are ways forward to find a way through the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is, of course, separate from the Good Friday Accords that can make sure that the importance of those accords are preserved. And that's the job for the UK.
Sorry, Mr. Ambassador. And my question was, does the President understand the Northern Ireland Protocol or not?
I think he certainly does, and he's made his point very clear that it's important to keep the Good Friday Accords very much at the forefront and preserve that.
I want to talk to you about COP26 in just a second, but before that, let's talk about Afghanistan, if we may. There was quite a lot of criticism from our Defence Secretary about the way the United States unilaterally decided to pull out of Afghanistan. How damaging was that?
Well, I don't think unilateral is the right word to use. I was with Secretary Blinken when we went to NATO in March at the ministerial and discussed the way forward in Afghanistan. As you know, President Trump had signed an agreement that we would be withdrawing from Afghanistan. We discussed and consulted with our allies with whom we went in together in Afghanistan 20 years ago. And in April, we came to the decision, after much discussion, different viewpoints were expressed, but we came to a unified decision that we would be withdrawing. And so we were working in that direction, May, June, and July. What changed was the situation in terms of the Afghans themselves, the security forces, the government on the ground in August, and we had to adapt to that. As the Prime Minister and President discussed in the Oval Office, it was remarkable what we did together then to evacuate an enormous number of people in a very short amount of time within the parameters that we had. And we'll continue to engage in terms of diplomacy, development in Afghanistan, but we'll also focus on the much broader challenges we have in the world.
So what happened then? Was it the fact that US intelligence was lacking in Afghanistan?
Look, intelligence can tell you what the capabilities of Afghanistan defense forces, security forces were. They can't necessarily know or predict exactly what individual leaders will do. The situation on the ground changed there, and as we have always done, we then had to change together. Our military forces did a remarkable job in developing a new plan, and the airlift that was carried out was frankly very historic.
What's the US view on the Taliban now? I was speaking to the head of the armed services here in the United Kingdom, and he said they're a group of country boys, and they've changed, and we should give them a break.
You know, the Secretary has said, and certainly I agree, that we need to see what the Taliban do, not just what they say. And so we, of course, have been talking to them. We had been through Doha for many months. And laid very clear what our expectations are and what they can expect from us if they meet those expectations and the commitments that they've undertaken. And we'll continue to do that. So it is an evolving story, and we are working very closely with allies, friends and partners, particularly the UK, in terms of the diplomacy there and watching the situation quite closely.
Yeah, but we are seeing girls being told that they can't go to school anymore. We're seeing journalists being tied up behind cars and dragged through the streets of Kabul. We're seeing people that used to work with the Allied forces now being rounded up and shot in front of their loved ones. What more do we need?
Well, I think you have seen some really disturbing and discouraging scenes from the Taliban. That's the Taliban and what they're doing, and what we need to do is stand by our values and make clear that if they expect any kinds of support, recognition, their way forward in the international community, that they're going to have to meet the commitments they have. So this is what we do in the world of diplomacy, and we'll keep watching that. And again, it's something we do as partners. A lot of consultation in the region, on the ground. I think we both have diplomatic representation in Doha, and we'll certainly discuss the way forward and see how things develop and evolve there, even as we deal with so many other challenges around the world.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Would it have been done differently, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, if we'd known then what we know now?
Again, I can't predict from hindsight. I think we this administration came in, looked at the situation on the ground. The president's been very clear. We went in together after 9/11 for a particular purpose. 20 years ago and trillions of dollars later, the president made a determination that it was time for us to pull out in terms of our military and focus on some of the other challenges. We need to take those resources and focus them on other things, having accomplished what we initially set out to do, and that is eliminate Osama bin Laden and the threats that perpetrated 9/11 20 years ago.
So even now it's considered that it was the right decision?
That's right. The president stands by that decision, and what we're focused on is the whole array of challenges that we face to our broader security and stability interests, those of our partners and allies as well. And first and foremost, that includes the climate challenge, where we need to focus resources, and the UK is taking a strong lead in that as the head of the COP26 process.
Okay. You keep taking me back there, Mr. Ambassador, so OK, let's go with that one. What does COP26 need in order to be a success?
Well, I think we've seen some progress. The president announced, of course, at the UN on Tuesday morning, before he saw the prime minister later that day, then in Washington, a doubling of the U.S. financial commitment. That's a doubling on what was already a doubling in April. So, in fact, it's the double-double in terms of our financial commitment, because the president has underscored how vital this is. We are at an inflection point, a historic inflection point. And I think, looking back over the decades, what we've done together to face the great challenges of any age is put our minds to it, put our resources to it, and we can deal with this climate challenge. It's going to be a tremendous opportunity in Glasgow to bring leaders together, not just the U.S. and the U.K., of course, but more than 100 countries coming together to discuss all aspects of this. It's really got to be a full-on effort to deal with climate change, to meet the goals that are set that can help us stave off the catastrophic consequences if we don't deal with this challenge.
How damaging will it be if the Chinese don't attend?
Well, I think we'll have to see. We've seen some words from the Chinese again at the UN this week. And their participation, of course, is important. They're the second largest economy in the world, the United States being the first, Britain being the fifth. It's these large economies that do have to take a lead, but it involves everybody being involved. And I think the Chinese will see that they have interests here as well. The climate affects them too, and their future and the future of their people, as well as their economic growth.
Is it easy being green?
I thought the Prime Minister's remark was very spot on. We need to be green, and there are ways of doing it. The technology and innovation is really quite remarkable. I often say, if I could go back 30 years, I think I might go a different direction than diplomacy, and focus on some of the things they're doing in terms of green energy, green technology, innovation. That's where the smart money is going. And just as we did with the moonshot, or frankly back in World War II, when we banded together and accomplished what many people thought we never could do to defeat the challenge of that time, I think we can deal with this time. So Kermit the Frog certainly is in all our minds these days.
Just before I let you go, Mr. Ambassador, as you said, you are here to serve for as long as the President would like you to. Obviously, you're incredibly diplomatic. Perhaps he might want you to go to Paris next to sort out President Macron, because he's not very happy with you guys at the moment.
Paris is a lovely city, and certainly not far from here. I'll stick to London for now. This is where the Secretary's asked me to be. We have a great team here, a great relationship with the United Kingdom, United States, United Kingdom, united in dealing with all of these challenges that we have. And I go into this weekend and this autumn very optimistic that we can accomplish a lot together.